Hello, welcome along to Sportsbet TV with me, Paul Alster. I'm looking forward to the final day of glorious Goodwood coming up on Saturday, the 5th of August, at the end of what has been a rather wet and windy and boggy meeting on the Sussex Downs. It's been very challenging finding winners for everybody. The bookies have certainly had the best of the exchanges. But I'm hopeful that we're going to have one run really well for us in the Stewards Cup on Saturday. That's my selection, is going to be in the Stewards Cup. And I've also got one other one that I've found for you over at Thirsk on Saturday afternoon as well. Now, if you're new to this service, I'm always looking for big priced horses, or at least horses that are at least an each way bet. And that's served me very well over the last 3 years with consistent profits season to season. You can press the subscribe button just below this screen to get all my free tips. And if you're interested in getting my extended views on many more races and more selections, then just click the link below this screen at Patreon to join my Out in Front service. Well, I've given you a few tips through the week. We had no luck the first 2 days with a couple of outsiders, Lone Eagle and Love de Vega. We were hugely unlucky with Sporadalto on Thursday. I'm recording this on Friday afternoon, this message. Sporadalto just could not get a run for nearly 2 furlongs, was boxed in when Jim Crowley had a double handful, eventually finished through into 6th. Now, I did mention that there were 6 places available for the horse. It depends on your bookmaker whether they're going to pay the 6 places, because there are a few non-runners, and then factor in the Rule 4 deduction. Some of them may have changed the terms and cut it down to 5, but Sporadalto was recommended for 6 places, finished 6th, was unlucky not to have finished very, very close to winning that race. My selection on Friday hasn't run yet, and I've got these 2 for you coming up now for Saturday. I'm going to take you to the very first of them in the Stewards Cup. Well, 28 runners on soft ground. It's a cavalry charge. Always a great spectacle as they come up and over the hill and start tanking down all the way downhill to the line at Goodwood. I'm actually hoping there isn't too much rain overnight. The track was drying a little bit on Friday to around good to soft. That will mean there's not going to be too much track bias. And because of that, I think that the draw is going to be pretty fair across the course. Now, I'm interested in a couple of runners, one of which I've highlighted over at Out in Front, and the other one I recommend to you here. I'm going to be backing both of them. As ever, there are so many horses you can fancy here. I'm not going to run through masses of horses, but just point out that in this terrific race, Apollo 1, who did best of those who ran in the Wokingham last time, is trained by Peter Sharambulas, was second in the Wokingham, goes off a £3 higher mark and will, I think, run very well indeed. It's up against the likes of Juan Lepan, Mums Tipple. They've been bombs of money for Orazio, the Charles Hills runner, who's only 11-2, and they're betting 12-1 bar. So a massive gamble on Orazio. King's Lynn, the Royal runner, isn't without a chance despite top weight. He's classy. The old Air Gold Cup winner Bielsa, another big race winner Samarkand, Al-Bashir, they're all horses who could go very well if things fall their way. Then, as I mentioned, I'm going to be backing a couple in this race to give myself a chance. Now, my selection here for you is a horse called Mr. Wagyu, trained by John Quinn and the mount of Jason Hart. Now, these 2 have teamed up to have a brilliant meeting already with a few winners, including Highfield Princess taking the King George Stakes on Friday in blistering fashion. So the stable's absolutely flying. Mr. Wagyu won the Stewards Sprint, the consolation race for those that don't make the cut for the Stewards Cup, back in 2021. And that was on soft ground, over the course and distance, absolutely blitzed them, won by nearly 3 lengths. So this is a horse who loves the track, especially when there's give underfoot, which makes his effort last year particularly commendable because it was fast ground. He finished 10th and was bang there until the furlong pole, where he couldn't stretch out on the really fast ground. Now, this year, he's been drawn in the middle in stall 14, and I think that is not going to be any disadvantage. I think you might as well just go straight down the middle, as Bing Crosby said, for the older timers amongst you. And I think that Jason Hart will just go pillar to post, shortest route between 2 points, going straight. Now, Mr. Wagyu was a good third to Badri at Epsom in June. He's now £5 better off with Ruth Carr's Contender, and he was only beaten 2.5 lengths in that Wokingham on the fast ground, finishing fourth in the group. That was over on the far side, seventh overall of the 27. He's been dropped £1 since his last run, which was on fast ground at Thirsk, and he didn't really stretch out again. And I think they've been waiting for the ground to come right. They've got it. He's a midsummer horse. All his wins tend to come in midsummer. He runs very well at this meeting normally every year. Now, he's available at 20 to 1 each way for 6 places at least. I recommend Mr. Wagyu as one who's going to give you a cracking run for your money. He's going to be up there and he'll be trying to box on and fend them all off inside the final furlong. That's Mr. Wagyu for John Quinn and Jason Hart in the Stewards Cup 3:35 Goodwood on Saturday. And my other selection is actually just a few minutes earlier, and that's going to go at Thirsk in the 3:25 race, the 7 furlong handicap, which is on soft ground at the North Yorkshire track in Heriot Country. 10 runners. Pretty decent race, actually. £20,000, Class 3. And it caught my eye here after I saw the early, what you might call tissue prices. Only the one firm has gone up early, William Hill, just testing the market. And I believe there could be some each-way value to be had. Now, the early favourite is the William Haggis trained Rosanna. Of course, Williams' horses in handicaps invariably start fairly prominent in the market, especially when they go north. And this one's a 7 furlong maiden winner on debut at Newbury last year and was subsequently a winner at Carlisle in the north, of course, the northwest, on good to firm ground last July. She's just had 2 runs this term. She finished a good third on her reappearance on soft ground at Windsor in May, and then after another 2 months off, so she obviously doesn't like her races too close together, was only beaten 2 lengths when fourth at Newmarket 3 weeks ago and has been dropped £1. Now, Haggis has a 28% strike rate at Thirsk over the last 5 years, so he is to be feared here. Will this horse back up after just a 2-week break? That's my concern for it. Now, the top weight is called Woven. It's trained by Michael Dodds. Very close third to Guido at Doncaster under similar conditions 2 weeks ago. And with Harry Russell claiming £3, he's a very good young Northern apprentice, Harry Russell. That really does offset the pound rise that Woven has incurred. And I think it'll be very much on the premises, as will another horse who I think the handicapper might just have his measure, but he'll run well. Richard Fahey's May Wake, fourth in the race at Doncaster after running up a series of second and third place efforts previously. David O'Mara's horse is running well in handicaps at this time of year. He's just had another one placed, I think, in the Golden Mile down at Goodwood. He's got Autumn Festival, not without a chance. There's also a horse who, if there's any money for it, an outsider called Heat of the Moment for Jane Chapel Hyam will be really noteworthy if the market speaks in its favour, because it's come tumbling down the weights since she ran in the French 1,000 guineas in May of last year when they really rated this filly. So she could be dangerous off this mark if she's come back and has found her form. And that leads me on to my selection. Now, this is a horse that's not won at the trip before. He's won over a mile, but I do think that the drop back to a strongly run 7 furlongs is going to prove ideal for the Roger Fell-trained Harswell Duke, who's the mount of Johnny Pete. Another good young Northern apprentice, claims £5. This horse really does revel in testing ground, and at Thirsk, when it's soft, it is normally, proper soft ground, and there's every chance there'll be a drop more rain before racing. I think he'll have absolutely optimum conditions on Saturday afternoon. He's a 4-time winner on soft and heavy ground at a mile and also 9 furlongs. And this horse, he's one of those, I think, that although he's won at a mile and at 9 furlongs, like some horses, that as they get older, they do get a little bit quicker. And I think that could be the case with this horse. When conditions are right for him, he's really good. You'll remember him in the Spring Mile at Doncaster, the consolation race for the Lincoln, where he beat 21 rivals over the mile off a mark of 83, stuck to his guns really bravely, having been right there up in the van all the way, as usual, made the running. And he was probably feeling the effects of what was a hard race when he was well beaten at Newbury 17 days later, and he's been rested since then. He returns after a 109-day break, which won't be a problem for him. I'm sure he's going to be taken to the front. And if he whips round those turns at Thirsk, the bottom bends are pretty sharp, and gets away by 2, 3, 4 lengths, he's going to take some pegging back, because we know he stays a mile or 9 furlongs. And if his young jockey gets him rolling along, he's going to take some stopping. He's also a horse, for those of you that like to play on the machine in running, that you could hopefully back and then lay off an arb on the horse if he goes clear and starts trading a lot shorter. Well, at 7 to 1 early, each way with William Hill's the only ones who've gone up, and all credit to them. Harswell Duke is my bet. I think he represents good value. So that's the Thirsk 325, along with the Stewards Cup handicap. A final reminder that if you want 4 more selections for Saturday, then check me out at Patreon, Out in Front, and you'll find some very, very interesting thoughts and some big prize selections set to run on Saturday, and of course going forward throughout the rest of the season. But for me, Paul Alster, here at Sportsbet, I hope you enjoy the rest of Glorious Goodwood and the Galway Festival, of course, still going through until Sunday. But for now, it's goodbye. I'll speak to you same time next week.